All right, everybody. Logan Alec, CPA here. Felt like a good time to go live again with another Q&A. So let's get to it. I see Sharon in the chat says, hello. So on Friday, the IRS website accepted my information, but not yet updated as to when my payment will go into my account. How long does it take? So if it was on Friday, that's pretty recent. Sharon, I would give it at least until next week to check. I would well, no, you got it before Tuesday. I would actually check again on Saturday, right? Because the IRS has said something to the effect that Saturday is like a special day, right? So if you get it in before Tuesday, then you should be able to see it the following Saturday. Fast Show Media, do you think there will be another direct payment? All I can really say is what, just to kind of reiterate my previous video, what the president said today. So today, a reporter asked the president, Mr. President, what are your thoughts on another direct round of direct payments to Americans as included in the House Democratic bill? Trump says, well, we're talking about that with a lot of different people. I personally think there's a fairly good chance there will be at least one more round of direct payments. Sometimes I think perhaps what the Trump and the Republicans are saying with respect to reopening, I think they're being maybe a little too optimistic than what the reality is going to be. But they just want to wait and see right now, right? We know Democrats are very gung-ho about another round of payments. McConnell again today, I don't know if you saw the news, but McConnell is again saying, hey, we got to wait. But we know they're not opposed to it. But, whether or not CARES 2 will be what the final CARES 2 bill is going to look like is not, we can't know until it actually happens. Okay, yeah. So a lot of people asking about the second stimulus. So yeah, I posted the video about what Trump said before this Q&A video, so you can check that out. I mean, I have my take on it, but I'm really just looking at what the leaders are saying, right? Pelosi says, heck yeah. McConnell says, Trump says we're talking about it, right? So that's like all I can really say about that. I don't think there's going to be something like the $2K to $10K a month thing. Okay, that I think is just it's just too much. I mean, to send that many people that much money, right? The income limits for a married couple on that proposal that came out on Friday was $200,000 for a married couple, right? And then phasing out from there, so they could actually still get payments. Even if they make more than that, it'll just be less than the max. I think something like that is just a little ridiculous, and I don't think that definitely not McConnell is going to go for that. Something like what Bernie and Harris put out on Friday. So do you think they will extend the $600 on unemployment? So I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats pushed for it, Johnny. But like I've been saying, extending unemployment is antithetical to Trump's goal right now. If you've been listening to Trump, he's been saying that we're making this transition to greatness, right? He acknowledges Q2 sucks, right? Unemployment is crazy, right? But his belief or his hope is that, hey, America's going to reopen. Q3 is still going to be tough. It's going to be the transition period. But then Q4, he says, that's when the greatness is going to begin. He says 2021, it's going to be truly great. One of our best years ever. That's definitely a stretch. I don't think 2021 is going to be one of our best years yet, because for the simple reason there are some jobs that are gone for good. There are jobs that there are employers who will not be calling people back to work. Let's pretend that the coronavirus goes away, right? Not goes away, but it's it's not going to be adversely affected by people going back to work. There are some businesses that just aren't going to be around anymore because they permanently closed, right? And we don't even know how much regulation there's going to be as a result of COVID. We've already seen one of my favorite restaurants. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's called Soup Plantation, right? It's like a buffet type thing, right? They're permanently closing their doors because they know that the feds aren't going to allow that kind of a restaurant to stick around after this COVID thing, right? Just because the rate, the food, the open food, everyone close to each other. And I think there's going to be a lot more regulations like that and there are just going to be so many jobs that just don't come back, right? So I know I got on a tangent here, Johnny. I don't really think that the Republicans are going to sign off on a large expansion of unemployment benefits. I think the Dems will propose it, but Trump's whole thing, he wants to go into Q4, and that's why he's saying right now Q4 is going to be a period of greatness because that's when the election is, right? So, okay, questions. Teresa Zachary, SSDI, got my $1,200, but not the $500 for my son. I enters info into the tool. Yes, that is a very common question. And in my first live today, I talked about the letter from the Democratic senators where they're basically telling the IRS, hey, you guys really screwed up with the $500 payment for dependents. Are you guys going to fix this? And they even particularly mentioned non-filers. They mentioned people who filed 2018 and 2019 tax returns, and they mentioned people in SSDI, Social Security retirement, VA, SSI, etc. So, where were you? Yeah, Teresa, your situation is very common. Jared Ballenbeck, Trump walked off, huh? Yeah, he kind of threw a fit there, didn't he? Sometimes look, he can be a little antagonistic himself, and the media can be antagonistic towards him. Okay, that's just the way it is, right? I mean, I think there's that's all I'm going to say about that. It's not like either party is, or not party. It's not like either individual is completely without blame with the way some of these interactions go. Cecilia Jordan, Heroes Fund. Yeah, so that is something that Schumer and Pelosi have both said. If you watched Pelosi's interviews recently over the weekend and last week, she's brought up heroes. So if you go to speaker.gov, you can see all the transcripts from things that Nancy Pelosi has said. And the reason I'm bringing up Nancy Pelosi is because she's the most powerful Democrat in the country, right? She is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. The ball is in her court when it comes to what's going to be in this CARES 2 package, right? Whether it gets through, Mitch and McConnell and Trump is a different story. But if you just look at, what she's talking about the Heroes Fund, and let's see, who asked this question? Yeah, Cecilia. This is what she said. This is a quote. This is from the transcript, and I'll put a link down here. From last week. She said, CARES 2 will honor our heroes, those who have on a day-to-day basis. Our healthcare providers, our first responders, police, fire, emergency services, people transit, food providers, the teachers. We honor them, and that takes the form of state and local funding. So she is connecting her goal of state and local funding, right? That is really, that's going to be the biggest part of this CARES 2 proposal. I really think is going to be this, the funding for state and local governments, because that's what Pelosi really wants. And you can kind of see how she kind of blends it with something that really everybody can get around, right? Or at least most people can get around, because even Romney has promoted some kind of a heroes page. It's kind of blending those two together, I think, for somewhat partisan purposes. But the heroes fund and all that is clearly at top of mind for the leading Democrats in this conversation. And there are also Republicans likewise who are saying, hey, it's not fair for these first responders to be working their butts off right now. And in some cases, right, they're making less money than some individuals on unemployment. So I think that's where kind of some people think that's not fair. And so I think there might be bipartisan support for that. Okay. Don Watkins, we get rid of Mitch McConnell. Well, I guess that's up to Kentucky, isn't it? When they mentioned essential workers, what category do they mean? Is it all that are still working? Tony, are you referring to the Heroes Fund? If you are, the Heroes Fund it's broad. I've seen, Pelosi mention, I think someone mentioned, like, I don't know, it was Pelosi or Schumer, everyone from garbage collectors to people in transportation industry. Does that mean Uber and Lyft drivers? I mean, I don't know. It could be very broad, but you look in these proposals and what they say is, we want to leave this up to Congress, basically, to determine who counts for that. Shay, baby, are you monetized here for donations? No, I'm not. I really do think that people should be, y'all should keep your money and save it. Signal Core, Wire Dogs, we ain't getting a stimulus. Stop believing that BS. Yeah, I mean, look, there are so many folks out there, and the media's kind of milking the second stimulus thing, like, oh, support, there's more support for it. And look, the support is all coming from the Democrats, right? Not a single Republican yet has affirmatively said, yeah, we want, for sure. The most they've said is that they're open to it, right? Like Trump today. We're talking about that with a lot of different people. That's what he said when asked about a second stimulus. So I'm not as hopeful as I think a lot of other folks on YouTube and even some of these, these mainstream media folks are, about the second stimulus. But here's the thing: Trump does want this Q3 and Q4 to, he wants the economy to be back like quicker, right? Another round of stimulus could give a little bit of a boost, right? But this recurring UBI concept, I'm not. I don't think that the Republicans will go for that to the degree that Democrats want it. Let's see. What do people that did not have to do anything now? We were left out of the first 1,200. Cannot get any, okay. Teresa Slagle. What do people do that did not have to do anything do now? We were left out of the first 1,200. Cannot get any answers. So when you say you don't have to do anything, are you saying that you're on benefits and you're part of that group that does not have to do anything to get the stimulus? If that's the case, all you can really do is wait. We know that Treasury is making a deposit to SSI this week, right? So May 13th, that's Wednesday. Treasury has come out and said that is the day when those on SSI should be receiving a stimulus via direct deposit or direct express. May 15th when paper checks go out. So I would look for something this week. Daniel Slater, did you figure out how to screen share? Yes, I was able to screen share earlier today. It's a little cumbersome though. I'm on a Chromebook and it's just not as powerful as a PC. Okay. What about people, Joey Anderson, what about people that waiting to be approved for SSI because they can't work due to their health? That's a good question. So in your case, if you don't file a tax return, Joey, you would have to file the non-filers, okay? Because you're not on SSI yet, right? So you don't fall into that bucket of people when the IRS says, hey, if you're on SSI or Social Security, whatever, you don't need to do anything. That's not you because you're not on SSI yet, right? So if you didn't file a tax return for 2018 or 2019, you got to use the IRS on filers tool. Zavala, what are your thoughts about people that are on SSDI and haven't received the stimulus check? I mean, my thoughts are the same for others who have not received the stimulus check and should have had it by now. All we know from SSA, if you look at the SSA guidance, it said that people on SSDI should have received it at the end of April. We know that hasn't happened. I would be getting worried if you received the letter, right? If you received I call them Trump letter, but if you receive the Trump letter that says, hey, we deposited your stimulus payment in the amount of $1,200 via direct deposit or whatever, if you got that letter and didn't get your check, I would be kind of spooked, right? Because that means that, crap, they sent it, but I didn't receive it. Now, if you haven't got that letter yet, I don't think it's panic time. I think it's just more patience, right? We know they're making another deposit on Wednesday, another big deposit, right, to a lot of people, and it's possible you might be in that group. James Moore, non-filer May 13th. Does that mean, okay, so I assume that means that you're a non-filer and you look like you're going to get it on May 13th. Robin, so are we not getting a second stimulus check? Well, this is what I've been saying the whole time. Like, the Democrats are going to push for it, right? CARES 2 is going to come out this week. The Democrats are, they're going to push for a second stimulus check. From our understanding is that Nancy Pelosi was on a call last Wednesday night with her whips, and she was talking about, yeah, it sounded like she had supported the $2,000 a month, right? Now, what that actually becomes at the end of the day, right, is anybody's guess. Now, I think that Republicans are going to look at how the response is to states reopening, right? If things go downhill fast, right? Because we've seen reports here and there. South Korea, right? One man in a nightclub, supposedly spread COVID to several different people, and now they're shutting down all bars and nightclubs. So I think if if it's looking like, right, in a few weeks, oh crap, we were premature in the in letting states reopen. Okay, maybe that would make Republicans a little bit more open, right, to seeing that next round of stimulus. But okay, I'm not saying this one is going to happen or the other. But if as these states reopen, oh wow, things are good. It looks like things are going okay, right? Businesses are picking up again. Yeah, the cases are going to go up. There's no doubt. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The cases are going to go up as states reopen, right? But if things are going okay, or at least it's acceptable, the amount of the increased caseload, I think Republicans will be less less open to that. So I think it's really a crucial time in these next few weeks as these states are looking to open up. Now, as Trump says, he was on the Rose Garden today. He says there's a lot of pent up demand, right? And he wants us to be doing fantastically well, right, by the fourth quarter. Well, for that to happen, stuff has to start getting in motion now. Nita says, Logan, if grandparents claim my children in 2019 but are saying they didn't receive $500 for them, who will or did get the payment? So, Nita, I would say that, so if your grandparents claim the children on the tax return and they're under the age of 17, right, they should get the 500. But if you're on my live stream this morning, you know that lots of people have said they haven't gotten the 500. And there are about a dozen or so Democratic senators who wrote letters to Secretary of Treasury Mnuchin and IRS Commissioner Charles Rettig saying, hey, you guys screwed up with the $500. There's a ton of people out there who got the $1,200 or the $2,400, but they didn't get the $500 for their children. What's up? You guys got to fix this. So I would just assume that that's where your children's grandparents are in, Nita. It looks like the IRS dropped the ball with the 500. Let's see here. Let me see if I can actually find that letter. Let's see. I'll put that letter in the description later, but you can watch my live from my first live this morning, and that had it. Jessica says, what's going on with the payee situation? Well, there's still no really guidance from the IRS. They just say we don't know when those representative payees are going to get it. Child support people on a second round, will they get payment this time? Yeah, I've seen theories both ways. That I really don't know. It looks like a lot of the Democratic proposals, at least the ones put out by junior Congress people, they kind of mimicked, right, in a lot of respects, the original CARES Act legislation as far as who qualifies. But we'll just have to wait and see what CARES 2 says. Robin Pantano, did you see Trump on the news today? Yes, I made a video right before this about Trump on the news today. I imagine you're either referring to what he said about stimulus or the fact that he walked away from the reporter. Melissa Campbell, SSI, if not May 13th, Friday the 15th. Yeah, so those are the two dates that SSA has said. May 13th for direct deposit, direct express. May 15th for when paper checks will start going out. So Aziza Low, Logan, what is this live about? So this is just a general Q&A I'm doing for people. I'm just literally answering questions. There was no breaking news or anything. I just thought it'd be helpful to answer people's questions. When is the IRS going to send out checks to representative payees? Do you think it will be after paper checks? No, I don't think that they're going to send out all the paper checks and then get to the representative payees. At least, gosh, I hope not, because sending out those checks could take months, and it would suck if those on receiving benefits who representative payees have to wait until that point. I'm hopeful that the IRS will issue more guidance on that by the end of the month. Another thing just to remember, if you do have a representative payee, is that the stimulus money is obviously not a Social Security benefit. Okay, this is money from the Department of the Treasury that may be deposited in representative payee's account, but this is not money that they have to account for. It's not money that's under their management. So if you want it, if you want to use it with apart from your your payee, that is your decision to make, and you can do that. Morteza Jafari, I just received my Social Security number. New in the United States. Do I receive money? What should where did you go? What should I do? So Morteza, I would say that you would be considered a non-filer. Okay, so you should use the IRS non-filers tool. I'll put a link to that here for you. And you can see my walkthrough. I don't even remember what date I did that, but I did a complete walkthrough of this tool. So yeah, Morteza, if you did receive your social, you're new to the United States, check out the non-filers tool. Filed for 2019. Jack said, I filed for 2019, but not 2005 to 2018. Will I still get a check? Yes, if you're eligible. Please go to where's my refund on Facebook and see how many of us have not gotten our tax refund. I mean, I believe you, Kimberly. I think, typically, I mean, even in normal times, the IRS can be quite late in getting people their refund. And now in times like this, one can only imagine. Yeah, you're right. Non-filers tool is going away in 2 days. So the IRS did say that, the Get My Payment tool, right? So the Get My Payment tool, the last day to update your direct deposit information in there is Wednesday at noon. Melissa Hunt, I forgot to mention, Logan, I appreciate what you do. I really hope you see my message. Thank you, Melissa. Grace Ma, any assistance on unemployment benefits submitted April 23rd for business. I still have a 9-to-5 looking for benefits on my business. Okay. That's interesting. I know some states are, that really just depends on your state, Grace. And in this situation, I imagine your business is a bona fide business, but for other people who might look at that question and say, oh yeah, I have a 9-to-5, but I have a business on the side and I'm trying to get the PUA for it. It has to be a bona fide business. VA. So a couple people asking about VA disability stimulus. So unfortunately, there's been a lot of guidance, for SSI and things like that. But for VA, the one thing that we've heard is a Treasury spokeswoman who said that veterans benefits recipients should expect their benefits. I think they said in mid-May, right? So what I'm hoping is, because veterans benefits were kind of grouped in with SSI, right, in terms of when you had to fill out the non-filers tool to report your dependents. I'm hoping that it'll come on Wednesday, right, along with SSI. I've seen a couple people in the chat, in the comments in the chat from some of my earlier lives say that they're veterans benefits recipients, and they see a pending deposit right now for the 13th. So that's my hope. Kimberly Qureshi, main stimulus, but yes, but no dependent stimulus, WTH. Very common situation. See my video from this morning. It's the video with like the baby's picture on it. I talked about two things in my first live this morning. One is the Newborn Cares Act, which is proposing to accelerate the payment, $500 stimulus payment to parents of children born in 2020, because otherwise they couldn't get the $500 for them until they file their 2020 tax return. The other is the letter from Democratic senators to Mnuchin and the IRS commissioner saying, hey, you guys really screwed up the $500 for dependents. There's a ton of Americans who got the $1,200, but they didn't get the $500 for their dependents. So go check that out. This is a widespread enough issue that it got the attention of several senators, right? So you're not alone. Let's see. Carlos says, could you please go look at my question on 729? Sorry, I don't know. I don't know what that is. What that means. Enigma, any word that there will be another stimulus? All I can really, look, any guesses I give you is speculation, right? The only facts we have are what people said, right? So I can tell you as a fact that Pelosi supports another round of stimulus, that many Democrats reported another round of stimulus. I can tell you today that when Trump, when asked if there will be a second round of stimulus, did not say there won't. All he said is we're talking about that with a lot of different people, okay? So what I'm reading into that is that the Republicans are being it's a wait and see approach, right? And Trump, right, when he was talking to the Republican lawmakers last Friday, he said, we're in no rush. We're in no rush, right? That's their position right now, right? Mnuchin is saying, he said yesterday, yeah, we want to wait and see how we do with this first round. We want to get all the money, want to get the money out, make sure the money is appropriated correctly from the first round, the CARES Act 1. And we want to see how the country basically responds to that, right? If the country's doing well, okay, we might not need another stimulus, right? But if things start going to heck again real quickly, okay, well, they might be more looking into that. Nico Smith, I filed my taxes for the first time, but I had to fax IRS additional documents. Haven't got my refund or my stimulus yet. Any advice? Filed in January? Well, Nico, I can say that in my experience, once you have to fax the IRS additional documents, you're kind of like, I mean, they haven't come out and said this, but it's always seemed to me that oftentimes you're kind of put in the back of the line again. So, I wouldn't be concerned. I think they'll get to it, but it's possible that whatever you had to fax to them ended up in some stack of paper somewhere. And we know they're not really, they said in the middle of last month, they're not processing paper anymore. And I don't know when that's going to come back. We know that the IRS had called for volunteers, and some workers did volunteer to come back. That was late last month. But the IRS said we don't have enough volunteers. So they're having to actually recall people now to come back. And so we'll see how that situation goes. Cheryl Brown, Representative PE, any update? No, none other than what I said in the last couple of videos. It's working the same. D. Sanchez, is the government giving anything to the banking people since we still all working with the same paid and people not working getting the $600 weekly? I'm not sure what you mean by the banking people. I assume maybe you mean work in the banking industry, but you're talking about how the people aren't working are getting the extra $600 a week. Yeah, so that's been a debate that people have gone back and forth on. I think it's been over a month ago. I made that video. Hey, is stimulus too nice to the unemployed, right? Because they're getting their weekly benefit plus $600 a week, at least until July 31st. And that can go both ways, right? I mean, I can see both positions on that. But you can check out that video if you want to kind of hear a little bit more about what I think. Giants 11X, so do Medicaid recipients living in a nursing home who have personal bank account that they receive their Social Security direct deposited still get a check? Yes. So, for folks in a nursing home, due to Medicaid rules, often, the bulk, if they have income, the bulk of it will go to the nursing home, right? But stimulus payments are not income. So I have not seen this, right, flat out said anywhere. But my thinking is that because they're not income for, they're not income for Medicaid purposes, that, So that money should go to the recipient, right? It shouldn't be routed to the nursing home. Eddie Rios, I have a balance owed to the IRS. Will they take my $1,200? No. The only government debt that could possibly, sorry, let me pull this curtain down so I'm not washed out. The only government debt that could really get in the way of you getting your stimulus would be the being behind on child support. Being behind on back taxes doesn't prevent you from getting a stimulus. Sarah Fisher, I'm a single mother, 29 years old, making under 25K, and I don't understand why Get My Payments tool still says that I'm eligible and will get a deposit date when updated. It's BS. Yeah, I mean, it is BS for many people. The IRS puts out their kind of cheesy little tweets every day that says the IRS Get My Payment tool is getting better every day. But I think for a lot of people, that's just not reality. Mobile Man, hi. At least a 1K a month of UBI per household would be helpful during these times. I mean, doubtless, Mobile Man, that's true. I know that 1K a month would help a lot of people. And personally, I think that those who are most in need, I think it's a long shot, right? I think that those who are most in need should be the ones. If there is that recurring UBI thing, I think the ones who are most in need should get it first. But kind of these proposals, which are would basically give UBI to 90% of Americans, I don't think that's what we need. I know that's not the most popular thing. I know a lot of you out there are saying, well, I have a family, and even though I make 80 grand or whatever, I still need that 2,000 a month. I mean, I'm kind of thinking, well, yeah, I know it'd be nice for you to have that, but I think that, I think that's antithetical to what Trump wants to do, right? Trump says he wants this Q4 to be great, 2021 to be great. I mean, he wants productivity to really go through the roof, right? Especially coming up to his election. But in terms of a second stimulus check for everybody, right? Basically, that covers everybody in the middle class. I think that's a stretch, and I would be shocked if that actually happened. But increased payments, or perhaps an expansion of those who are benefits for those who are already on means tested programs. Those who really need it. I would hope that people on both sides of the aisle can be empathetic to that. Loving my life, Murray. Am I the only one not getting a check because somebody claimed me? No, you're not. If you were claimed as a dependent by somebody else, then in general, you would not get one. Pretty fluttered by Star. I'm on SSI and didn't get my $500 for my dependent. What should I do? Well, the only thing you can do at this point is to file a 2020 tax return, but obviously, if you don't file a tax return, that sounds that's a dumb answer, right? Maybe the IRS will come out with a get non-filers tool for 2020. I don't know, but we do know that the Senate that about a dozen senators sent a letter to the IRS on the 8th, which was Friday, telling them, hey, there's a ton of people, and they mentioned the three groups, right? Filers, non-filers, and those receiving federal benefits who got the $1,200 but not the $500. What's up with that? So. We do know that this has got the attention of senators. Rick says, hi, Logan. How should my son with newborns file for the 500? Kind of a similar answer to the previous question. The only thing right now is they would get the $500 through their 2020 tax return. However, that Newborn CARES Act that I talked about this morning, if you look at my video this morning, the thumbnail has like a little baby on it. There are 4 senators, right? 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. So this is like a bipartisan idea, which is cool, saying that, hey, the IRS needs to get the $500 to people who just had a baby in 2020, like now, right? Not in 2021. So just know that for these issues with dependents with the 500, it has caught the attention of several senators, okay? So if you feel like you're getting shafted by the IRS, you have been, but senators know you have been, and they're looking into that. Okay, loving my life, Murray. If a second one is issued, would I qualify? So And Murray, you were the one who were asking about if you're claimed as a dependent. That's really anybody's guess, right? I do know that in the Democratic proposals that we've seen, they do want to include adult dependents in there, right? But it would be probable that whoever claims you would get it if that does happen, right? If they do include adult dependents, it's possible that the one who claimed you would get that benefit for you, if that happens at all. Mark, I gather every state's got different child support offices to deal with, and many of them haven't been working due to COVID. So depending on what state you have to deal with, you're likely straight out of luck. Yeah, I mean, that's the case. So, if the child support if the stimulus was seized for child support, theoretically, it should be routed to the state child services department or whatever they called in that state, for routing to the individual to whom their support is owed. But of course, how efficient states are at doing that is obviously on a state-by-state basis. So, Norman Williamson, he also said some people want to raise taxes. What president said no more taxes than raise them? Well, probably, I think several have, but obviously the most famous one is Bush 1, when he said, read my lips, no new taxes. But to your point, Norman, yeah, and just for those who weren't here for my last video, here's something that I think might imply that Trump may not be so thrilled about the prospect of UBI, the monthly checks. So at the end of his answer to the question about is there going to be another round of direct payments, Trump said that, hey, third quarter is going to be transitioned. Fourth quarter, he says, you're going to see some numbers that are going to be tremendous. And next year, you could potentially have the kind of numbers you saw before, right? Because there's that pent-up demand. So he says 2021 is going to be phenomenal unless somebody messes it up by coming along and raising taxes, doubling, tripling, quadrupling your taxes like a certain party, namely the Democrats, want to do. You'll mess it all up. So now, this is obviously kind of a stretch and speculation, but one could read into that Trump would be hesitant to sign a massive relief package, multi, because the $2,000 a month thing, especially, the Sanders one, the $2,000 to $10,000, and Harris, the $2,000 to $10,000 a month, that cost would be immense. That would be trillions of dollars, right? There would have to be revenue increases for that. Tax increases to pay for that. And one could read into that statement by Trump, right? That anti-taxation sentiment from Trump there, that he, may be opposed to a massive stimulus bill, such that the Democrats will likely propose for CARES 2. When can we call IRS? Nobody knows. Pertaining to the stimulus, right? If you got a Trump letter, there's a number at the bottom, but no one picks up. I did get, and I mentioned this in a live earlier today, I did get a email from a Treasury Department employee who watches my stuff, and she said that for she said that for non-stimulus related matters, you can check with your local TAS office. Let me see here. And I'll put a link in the chat right now. So for non-stimulus issues, right, you can check out taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov, right? She said that taxpayer advocate services are still picking up the phones right now. However, they're not answering stimulus questions, okay? You can leave a voicemail for a non-stimulus question, but back to you in 3 days. So a lot of your questions, though, are not directly stimulus related. A lot of your questions are, pertaining to things on your tax return, right? And hey, what's the deal with that? It's not directly stimulus related. They might be able to help you with that, okay? Mrs. Major says, injured spouse. Yeah, so we don't have an update other than what I told you, was that last week or the week before in my update? So injured spouse, right, the IRS is aware of the issue that many individuals who filed injured spouse with their 2018 and or 2019 tax return, they should have, only the non-injured spouse's stimulus should have been taken, right, for child support or whatever. The injured spouse should not have been. But unfortunately, in many cases, both spouses' stimulus was taken, right, to be applied to the non-injured spouse's child support, in most cases. But the IRS said that they're working on that, and you don't have to do anything else. If you did file injured spouse with your tax return. However, if you didn't file injured spouse with your tax return, then you should file an injured spouse for the stimulus. Okay. Let's see. I see non-filers is over. Non-filers over. It's not over. I mean, you can go here and you can see that you're still able to do it. Chiquita Brown says, my son gets SSI claimed to in 2018, but not 2019 because I have been sick. Will he get the $1,200? He should. Now, he is in that position where, there's many people in these situations where he doesn't, it might take some thinking on the IRS's part to figure it out, right? So I would ask, so you already filed your 2019 return and you didn't claim him, right? So now the IRS has to know, okay, although she claimed him in 2018, but not in 2019, he should still be eligible. Will that happen? Will they actually put 2 and 2 together and figure it out? I don't know. So he might have to file a 2020 return, right, to get the $1,200. I hope not. I hope the IRS does figure it out. But there's a chance that in situations like this, right, because I have heard other reports of individuals who were claimed in 2018 but were not eligible to be claimed in 2019. They still don't know where their stimulus is, right? Maybe the IRS will fix it, but you never know. Hey, will everyone be able to update their direct deposit? I can tell you that no, not everyone will be able to, because the Get My Payment tool just isn't working for some people. But you can always give it another shot. Last day to update your direct deposit information is this Wednesday at noon Eastern time. Jessica Summer, can my homeless friend get a stimulus check? Yes. Wow, I've seen that question a lot. Maybe I should do a separate video on that. Let me write that down, because I think there was a lot of confusion about that. There was a lady, her name was Angela White. She was asking this question of me yesterday about her homeless son. And, I think there's a lot of folks right now in the homeless community or who know homeless people who think that they don't qualify because they don't make enough money. And I think they got that idea because in an original version of the CARES Act, the original version of a bill that became the CARES Act, there was the idea to have a minimum income that people had to make to qualify for the stimulus. So I think a lot of people who are homeless or who know homeless people, they think that's still the rule, but that's not the rule. There is no minimum income. You can make zero money and qualify for the stimulus. Of course, there are special issues with homeless people, right? They will need internet access to use non-filers. I assume they don't have a bank account. So in that case, they'll probably need to be mailed a paper check. Okay, they need a dependable address to send the paper check to. Hopefully they have a trustworthy friend or relative who can receive that check. So there are specific issues, of course, with the homeless population, but as long as they're eligible, just like anybody else, they're not, meaning they're not a dependent, and they don't make over the income limits, which I assume they don't if they're homeless. Then yeah, they're eligible for stimulus payments. Blue Pit 4321. I'm receiving SSA, but I have received my stimulus check yet on my card. I assume you mean you haven't. I would say that, look, we know that they're making a big deposit to SSI on May 13th, right? They've said that. There might be other groups in that deposit as well, right? If they miss you for Social Security retirement at the end of April, hopefully you'll be in kind of this group as well on Wednesday. One thing that the Treasury Department employee did email me about, she said, one other thing, some accounts are updated on daily cycles and some are updated weekly. And with close to 17 years of service, I can't tell you what that is, but it just is saying that some accounts are updated daily and others weekly with regards to the stimulus. What I've noticed could be Wednesdays or Fridays. So, take that as you will. Hello, Mr. Logan. Carmen Rodriguez. Hello, Mr. Logan. I'm new to SSI as of January 2020. I've not received anything. I was told I had to do nothing, that I would receive it automatically. I have not direct deposited. Unfortunately, Carmen, you were misinformed. Those who are new to receiving benefits in 2020, you have to use non-filers. Let me get the old. So here's a great resource for those who collect Social Security, SSI, SSDI, etc. So Carmen, for your particular question, look in the last page of that PDF that I linked to down there. Because I don't have the screen share right now because it's a bit cumbersome for me. I'll just read it for you, Carmen. So this is the situation where you began receiving Social Security, retirement, survivors, or disability, SSDI benefits, or supplemental security income, SSI, on or after January 1st, 2020. Okay. So if you filed a tax return for 2019 or 2018, Carmen, let me say that. I have a relative named Janet Rodriguez, so that's why. Carmen, sorry I got your name wrong. But if you filed a tax return for 2019 or 2018, you don't have to do anything, right? If you filed a tax return. But that doesn't seem to be your situation by the nature of your question. So if you did not file a tax return for 2019 or 2018, and you are new to benefits in 2020, okay, here's what it says. It says beneficiaries and recipients in this category may use the IRS non-filer interpayment info here tool to receive their own $1,200 payment and $500 payment for qualifying children. You may only enter non-direct express bank account information for direct deposit or leave bank information empty to receive a paper check by mail. Okay. So Carmen, to answer your question, if you did not file a 2018 or 2019 tax return, you need to use non-filers. And I'll put that link down here. Christy Gabriel, if my son is turning 16 in September, will he get his own check in round 2? And if so, will I be able to claim him for $500 also? Okay, so Christy, so assuming that you claim your 16-year-old son as a dependent, you are eligible for the $500 for him for the first stimulus. Okay, even if your son is turning 17 in 2020, he is eligible. Right now, I know your son's younger than that. But there's a lot of confusion about, okay, well, what if my child turned 17 in 2020? If your child turned 17 in 2020, you are still eligible for $500 for that child for the stimulus, okay? And don't forget that. In terms of round 2, it's really anybody's guess. I would imagine now that some proposal, I would imagine you would still get the money for him if he's still your dependent in 2020. But a lot of the Democratic proposals we've seen have proposed the same amount for non-dependents as dependents, right? Like the Sanders-Harris one on Friday, they're saying $2,000 per non-dependent, $2,000 per dependent. Will retirement people in SSA receive the second stimulus of $2,000 a month? Well, a couple things about that question. No one knows at this point if there is going to be a second stimulus, right? That's not a guarantee, right? And it is a long shot, okay? Like it is a long shot, but I don't see why they would exclude people if there is a second stimulus. I don't see why they would exclude people on Social Security. It doesn't make sense to me, right? Like why would they give it to people who are working, making decent money, right? But not give it to people whose only income is a government check every month. That just wouldn't make sense to me. So yeah, I mean, if you're willing to give a check to someone who makes a married couple with a low 6-figure income, you should be willing to give it to someone who's on a fixed government check every month, right? So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. The concern for you would be, hey, if that's proposed, will it actually happen, right? So wait, what is coming on 13th if my mother put me as a dependent on I'm on SSDI and leave on my own? So frozen heart, if your mother put you as a dependent, you shouldn't expect anything on the 13th. Oh, leave on my own. You meant live on my own. Okay, so if you weren't actually eligible to be claimed as a dependent, your mom would have to amend her tax return, or actually, if it's 2019, file a superseded tax return by July 15th. By October 15th, if she files an extension by July 15th, right? Because you said you live on your own. I imagine you mean you support yourself too. You didn't say that, but if that's the case, your mom shouldn't have claimed you, right? Because by claiming you, it's telling the IRS you're not eligible. So if that's the case, if that's true, right, that she's actually not eligible to claim you as a dependent, I would say she needs to file a superseding tax return, and you should use non-filers if you don't file a return. But it sounds like you support yourself, so I imagine you make more than the standard deduction. So you would file your 2019 tax return and make sure you don't check the box that you can be claimed as a dependent. Kristen Johansson, I know 2 adults on SSI that were claimed as dependents and gained the stimulus. Did they change it? No, they did not change it. But mistakes have been made. The most famous mistake are deceased individuals getting stimulus. There were also reports that so non-citizens, no social security number, so they basically, these students, right, who came over on student visas and who incorrectly used TurboTax to file, something. They shouldn't have used TurboTax, but to file their own tax filings, they used TurboTax. They woke up and now they're back in their home country. They woke up to $1,200 more in their account, right? That's total screw up, right? So mistakes have been made. Unfortunately, most of the mistakes have not worked in the people's favor, like we're seeing with the $500 payments for dependents. A lot of people get missed for that. But Kristen, with the people sometimes it works in their favor, right? Matt, nicely. Just joining. What is your thoughts on the Hero Fund for essential workers? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think there is bipartisan support for that. And I think that folks who are putting themselves at a heightened level of risk right now to make sure that our society functions and our healthcare system functions and other essential services that is provided functions, I think they should be rewarded for that. I do, especially because people get so much money on unemployment right now, and that's fine. That's their right, man. I mean, government says you're getting an extra $600 a week on unemployment. You got to milk that, right? But I can see how some people who are busting their butts to keep us healthy, right? These first responders in the hospitals, right? They might feel like, hey, why am I doing this? So, if this was put up to my vote, which it's not going to be, right? Congress is going to decide, and the president's going to decide. But I have no problem with that. Monique just joined. Did you address any new information regarding those who didn't receive the $500 per child? Nothing new other than what I said this morning. It's gone. When will they deposit the next set of checks? I mean, that's really anybody's guess. Well, first, it's anybody's guess that there will be a next set of checks. When will they deposit it? That, who knows? Democrats want to wait and not Democrats, Republicans. They kind of want to play it by ear, right? They want the country to reopen, see how it goes, right? I mean, Kevin Hassett, White House economic advisor, he was. Let me get the exact quote for you. So he was basically saying, yeah, so he was basically saying, look, I mean, another round of stimulus might not be necessary, right? Because, if the whole economy reopening goes well, right? But if it doesn't go well, I think that ups the chances of another stimulus coming out. Gail Garcia, is there some sort of HERO Act for like first responders? If so, when will that come? So I've talked about that a couple times right now. We do know that we will see. I am very confident we'll see something like that in the CARES 2 that Democrats put out. Whether it passes is a different story. Are taxi drivers eligible for PUA? Yes. Yeah. So you are self-employed. I imagine you're asking because you're self-employed. So yeah, you are eligible. Martina Poole, my check was sent to an account I don't know. Now WHA, I don't know what that says. So Martina, if that happens, it'll be kicked back to the IRS and they'll send you a paper check. That's the unfortunate truth. Christy Gabriel, PPP came through before PUA, but now my PUA is making its way through for self-employed. Can I really return PPP? No questions asked. Yeah, so this is a tricky situation because obviously the PPP is supposed to be used for payroll. PUA, it's basically you're saying, hey, I'm self-employed, but I'm now qualifying for unemployment because of the CARES Act, and the two they don't match, right? It's like, okay, you're getting PPP to pay yourself, but then you're also getting PUA. How does that make sense, right? And there's some strategies here. One is, one would have been to wait to apply for unemployment until after your, the PPP funds have run out. However, that's a bit tough now because the extra $600 a week ends on July 31st, right? But just to answer your direct question, yeah, I will talk to your bank about that. Josh, NC78, I've waited 4 weeks and I'm on SSI. This is starting to be more disturbing than a Sunnyside ape egg. Brother, is May 13th official date for us poor people? Yes, that is the official date for SSI. I'm going to put a link in here. You can look on page 6. Phil B, will refunds be less due to these checks next year? No. So what the CARES Act did was create a new tax credit. And so, if you're a single person with no dependents no eligible dependent children under the age of 17, you would be eligible for an additional $1,200 tax credit on your tax return next year. So let's say that you would otherwise be eligible for a $1,000 credit, without stimulus. With stimulus, now you're eligible for let's say if stimulus didn't pass, you'd be eligible for a $1,000 refund on your 2020 tax return. Okay. Now with stimulus, right, assuming you're eligible for stimulus, you would be eligible for a $2,200 refund on next year's taxes. The original $1,000 plus the $1,200 for the stimulus. However, Congress said we're going to pay you the $1,200 in advance. That's what these stimulus checks are. So when you file your tax return, you're still going to get the same $1,000 refund you would have been eligible for anyway, right? $600. So Gina says $600 at unemployment. My son gets both. Will he have to pay back money? So I assume you're referring to the $600 FPUC, which is the extra $600 that everybody on unemployment gets right now. The answer is no, if that's what you're referring to. Everybody on unemployment right now, well, not everybody, but so no, he won't have to pay it back. That $600 benefit is on top of the normal state unemployment benefits. Okay, so he won't have to pay that back. Patsy Lambert, I received my letter but didn't get a check. I would be curious, how did the letter say that your payment was issued? If it said that it sent it to you via paper check, that's kind of scary. That means potentially the check could have been swiped from your mailbox, right? I told you all the story a couple of weeks ago about the individual in New York who was stopped by cops, and he had over $12,000 worth of stimulus checks hanging out of his pockets, right? If it was sent via direct deposit, in that case, you should look at the Get My Payment tool and see what is the account number that was sent to, right? If you don't recognize the account number, but it's at your bank, then you should probably call the bank and say, hey, I expected this payment, I didn't get it. If the bank has no idea, then the only one who you could ask is the IRS. They're not picking up the phones right now, right? So you'd have to wait until they actually start picking up the phones. Debbie Edwards, my sister filed taxes this year, but no check. She worried. Can you address and tell what to do? She was laid off after 35 years of working the same job. Thank you for what you were doing. So Debbie, if she filed taxes this year, then she shouldn't have any concern because she's done everything she can do, right? Now, if she filed her taxes later, like recently, then it's possible the IRS hasn't processed it yet. But it's really just a waiting game at this point. Disability. Hey, John Scott. Hey, if someone is on disability and has a child on SSI, will he get the $1,200? I'm his payee. Also, I claim the $500. Both of my kids didn't get that. How will I get the $1,000 they shorted me? Okay, so your first question: someone's on disability, has a child on SSI. Will he get the $1,200? I'm his payee. Okay, so if that individual on disability is eligible for a check, stimulus check, then yes, he'll get the $1,200. And if he claims that child as a dependent, he will get the $500 for the child. So that's that. Yeah, lots of people were shorted the $500 per child. That is a certainty. And right now the answer is some senators are working on it, right? They demand answers from the IRS. But at this point, the only guidance from the IRS is you have to file a 2020 tax return in order to get the money they shorted you for. When will I get my stimulus as supplemental Social Security income beneficiary? Hopefully this Wednesday, May 13th. If you're on Direct Express or Direct Deposit, checks will be going out May 15th. Sheena, sounds like you have a baby. Yes, I do have a baby. Yeah, he's very loud. James Smith, why not leave the state shut down? Wow, that's a very loaded question. I mean, there's a couple things here. It's an election year, right? Trump wants to go into the election with, during a period of greatness, right? He says Q4 is when the greatness is going to start again, right? So I think that's part of it, right? He wants to be able to say, hey, look, I got, will want to take credit for it, right? Hey, I took America through this dark time, and now look, we're on the way to recovery, right? So that's one thing. But there's another thing here, even apart from politics, which is the government can't just keep pumping money out. If America's not making stuff and selling stuff, so I think there's a broader question there of productivity and there's economic factors, and that they have to be weighed, though. Like, how much loss of life, essentially, and increased coronavirus cases are we willing to accept in the short term in order to get the economy going again, right? And I mean that's that's a big question, and I don't think there's really necessarily a right answer to that. But Republicans want to do it sooner rather than later. Sailor Stone, yeah, they can't let the economy best and let the Hunger Games begin. Yes, it's true. James Farron, with the IRS putting identity protection pin on my account where an IP pin is required to file taxes, prevent me from seeing stimulus status. I'm on SSDI, still seeing payment status not available. Yeah, we're seeing payment status not available a lot for individuals who don't have a normal situation. And by normal, I mean common, right? So, the person who switched, who was on, the person who, just recently got on benefits in 2019, the person who was claimed as a dependent in 2018, but not 2019, right? Kind of your situation. So these individuals who are in kind of more unique situations, or situations that not nicely fit into one of the IRS's buckets, oftentimes they are seeing that payment status not available. If you get SSA, we also get VA if you're 100% disabled. Okay, so one stimulus check per person. Taping sounds. My son gets SSD and works part-time. Does he qualify for 1,200? Yes, if he's otherwise eligible. If he's not claimed as a dependent. Chaos Mass. How do I find my money? What's the exact link to find my money? I think you're referring to the Get My Payment tool. So, Chaos Mass. Here it is. Get my. Robin Pantano, very curious. My ex owes me $86,000 and does not have a bank account. I assume you're referring to child support. Will I get anything? Well, if your ex filed a tax return, then that would trigger a stimulus payment, which would theoretically go to you. It would be routed via child support through your state. If he didn't file a tax return and he's not on federal benefits, then that's a different story. Then the IRS would not even know to give him a stimulus to be seized, to be routed to your state child services department to go to you, unless he files non-filers. And if he knows he's not going to get a stimulus, I'm not sure how much incentive he has to file non-filers. Okay. Brian Buckley, Logan, I already farted my roommate's cereal box. It's gross. Don Watkins, what if person got 2 stimulus check, one on dead, IRS sent letter to keep it, other was Social Security. Yeah, so we know that the IRS wants their money back. If someone was sent money they shouldn't have received. I did a video on that last week. But I will, let's see, let me pull up the guidelines so that you can have it. They basically want you to return the money, right? If you haven't deposited the check, right, they want you to write void on the check and then send it back to them if the money was already deposited or is direct deposited. They want you to, yeah. So if you go here and look at the very bottom at question 41 on how to return payment. How do you like pizza? I like it a lot. Eric, I got my $1,200 stimulus check. If they pass the next bill, $2,000, I could still get it. Yes or no? Yeah. So if they pass it, right, and you're eligible for this one, you're going to be eligible for the next one, right? They're not. I don't think they would make the next one more limited in who gets it, right? If anything, if it passes, right, which is a different story. But the way the Democrats are going to write it, they're not going to make it more narrow, right? I think they were trying to expand it, right? Adult dependents, those married to someone without a social, right? So yeah, that's just in terms of eligibility. Calvin, thank you, Mr. Logan. My name is Calvin. I got my stimulus check on the 29th. That's awesome. Answer my question. Let's see. All right, Constance Morgan says, I still have not gotten my stimulus check, and neither did my husband. He's on SSI, and I'm on SSDI. So, yeah, your husband is scheduled, if he gets direct deposit, his benefits or direct express this Wednesday, the 13th. Many people on SSDI have not gotten it, although they were supposed to get it at the end of April. But I would be looking out for yours perhaps this Wednesday as well, because that's when it looks like they're going to be doing a large batch. They did not say SSDI would be included on Wednesday, just SSI, but it's possible. Gabe Nagel, where do you work at? Just curious, since you're a CPA. Well, I used to work at Ernst & Young, but now I work for my own company called Alec Media LLC. Thank you for everything, well, David. You're welcome. Marco Aguiar, I received SDI disability and received a letter from the IRS signed by Donald Trump. Says how much I should get and still have not received my stimulus payment. Yeah, so that's a situation where I would be concerned, right? So for those of you who haven't gotten it yet, but haven't gotten the letter yet, okay, don't worry until you've gotten the letter. But Marco, in your situation, I would say, okay, how did it say that it delivered your stimulus, right? Because in that letter, it'll say, hey, we delivered your $1,200 via direct deposit, paper check mailed to you. If I think the most concerning situation if you were supposed to receive it via paper check, because that means that potentially your check was stolen, right? Or sent to the wrong address. And that's a different matter. But if you were to receive it direct deposit, it's possible that that your bank would know what happened there. Phil B, have to do more of these. Very informative. Yeah, thanks, Phil. Yeah, definitely trying to find that balance of the daily stimulus updates versus kind of breaking news updates versus Q&A. Joe Zico, do I have to apply first for regular unemployment before I apply for PUA, pandemic unemployment assistance? So it depends on your state. I know there's a handful of states where it seems that people had the most success getting rejected for regular unemployment and then filing for PUA. But in other states, there is a direct PUA application. Miss Yolanda, I'm a representative payee for my 17-year-old son in SSI. He is considered an adult, so I assume you mean he's not claimed as a dependent. And I did not receive anything for him. Will he receive a payment? Thanks. So Miss Yolanda, yeah, the IRS has said that they do not know when they are going to generate stimulus payments for those who have a representative payee. So, yeah, that's the situation. It sucks, but that's what they said. You know, ba, 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 ba. Kyung Kim, hats off to you. You're doing a great job. And then you wrote something in Korean. Let's see if I can translate it. Wow. It just says thank you. You're welcome. Okay, Deborah Anderson. When will Social Security retirement direct deposit stimulus checks be made? Well, theoretically, they should have been made at the end of April, right? But we know that didn't happen for everybody. I would be checking this Wednesday, right? Because we know they're doing SSI this Wednesday, direct deposit, direct express. Maybe you'll be in there too. But at this point, that's what all the IRS has said. The IRS and Social Security Administration said you should have got it by the end of April. And you can look on this PDF that I'm going to send you shortly. Right. PDF for SSA recipients. Just passing through. I haven't seen my husband in 2 years. If he owes back child support for his grown kids, will they take my stimulus money because we are not legally divorced? Well, they would if you file jointly with him and you don't file injured spouse. If you haven't seen him in 2 years, I assume you file your taxes separately. And if that's the case, then you shouldn't have to worry about that. However, if you're still filing taxes jointly with someone you haven't seen in 2 years, I'm not sure, how that would work logistically in terms of sharing information. But then you want to make sure you have injured spouse filed, right? Jen Jones, someone without my permission used my social security number and claimed me as a dependent, keeping me from receiving a stimulus check. What do I do to get my stimulus check? Okay. This is one of those situations where you have to contact the IRS. Yeah, so that sucks. There is an identity theft form. Let me pull it up. So here you go. This is called identity theft affidavit. So you file this form. Like in section B, you'll see, you'll check that box that says someone used my information to file taxes. Right. So this is the form you send to the IRS to say, hey, somebody used my information and they put me as their dependent, or, this isn't your situation, but if they filed a tax return using your social, this is how you tell the IRS. Unfortunately, they're not processing paper right now, so it may take some time for them to process this, but that is the protocol. Which state do you live in? I live in California. How long for a paper check for wrongly deposited check on April 15th? How long for a paper check for wrongly deposited check on April 15th? Okay, so I assume you got your direct deposit on April 15th, but it was to the wrong account and got sent back. I mean, I have heard of people receiving a paper check in that situation in as little as a few weeks. It's obviously kind of, well, we're still within a few weeks from then. But with the paper checks, it's really anybody's guess. We do know that the IRS has said that they're significantly ramping up the paper checks this month, right? And that's why they sent that get my payment deadline for Wednesday, because they said, hey, we're going to be picking up paper check production because we want to get all the stimuli out. So that's why they sent that deadline. So, Martina, I would hope you get it this month, because they said they're going to ramp up paper check production this month. Will the second stimulus check go to my bank account or the one that filed me as a dependent? Well, has not that, we haven't even seen the draft CARES 2 yet, but I would imagine that for those who claim dependents, the money would go to the one who claims the dependent, right? Similar to this one. However, some Democrats have argued for making the stimulus payment for dependents the same as non-dependents for future stimulus, but who knows what will happen. Frank Gutierrez, I received SSA retirement. What would happen if I used a non-filer's tool? Nothing bad. Frankly, lots of people were afraid that, they use a non-filer's tool, but then it turns out they didn't have to. Some people in that situation, at least the TurboTax Stimulus Edition, they actually got their stimulus faster than if they had used it, right? Like there's some people in SSI who, when we thought SSI had to, file the simple tax return, right? IRS eventually came out and said, no, you don't have to. But folks who did use the TurboTax Stimulus Edition during that time, some of them actually already received their stimulus in April, right? While the majority of SSI who didn't file anything are hopefully going to get it, this Wednesday. All right. When will people on payees on SSI get their stimulus? IRS has not said yet. All right. So I'm going to go till the 90-minute mark, and then I'm going to call it a day, or at least go eat some dinner. Pierre says, I have a child. He was born on March 15, 2020, so they didn't give him $500 for last month. I need to know why. Well, because he's not in their system yet, Pierre. So what you would do is you would file a 2020 tax return and claim him on there. The Newborn CARES Act, which I talked about this morning, if you look at my archives, there's a baby on the thumbnail. Some senators want to make it so that you will get the $500 quicker, but as of right now, your only recourse is to file a 2020 tax return. Giants 11X, what about people on Social Security retirement? Are they still sending direct deposits for those people? I haven't gotten mine yet. Portal keeps saying we don't have enough info yet. We're working on this. I have seen anecdotal reports of people in the chat who are on Social Security retirement who have still been receiving direct deposits as late as last week. So it appears that they're still sending them out. However, I'm wondering why it says we don't have enough info, because if your only income is Social Security retirement, I mean, it should be a slam dunk for you, right? I mean, the IRS just gets your information and they say, oh, Giants 11X is eligible. I would be curious if there's other factors there, what's going on. But yes, people are still getting direct deposits for those. Sailor Stone, any info on how to help homeless people get their payment? Yeah, I mean, it's really an individual case by case thing. I know that, let me see here. I thought I saw some community group for that. And I think there are various kind of local, like community-based efforts to help homeless people get their stimulus, but there's nothing like that on a national level, unfortunately. So you just have to kind of check where you live. Christy Gabriel, Mr. Alec, can Illinois residents hire you for tax help in April or no? No, I'm actually not taking new clients at this time, but you know that Clear Value tax guy's in Illinois. If you want to reach out to him, and you know he's pretty good. Was there another stimulus bill passed today? No, there was not another stimulus bill passed today. Now there was another proposal that kind of made the news today about, you know, $5,000 stimulus checks in exchange for borrowing from your own Social Security down the line. That's what made the news today. But from my understanding is that the White House has said that they're not really open to that. So let me see here. Where was that? Let's see. Right. So I saw some people in the comments. There's several comments to this effect. They're asking, hey, if I get unemployment, will that, you know, hurt me from receiving other federal benefits? Right. So right now, you know, it depends on what benefits we're talking about. However, there is a proposal made by some Democratic lawmakers. They're calling it the Strengthening UI, that's Unemployment Insurance for Coronavirus Impacted Workers and Students Act. So, you know, their idea is that to make UI benefits, including the $600 extra, not affect an individual's eligibility for any means tested programs. Okay. I made a video on that. I think it was last week, so you can check that out. And who knows, Democrats might throw that in their CARES Act. Maria Martinez, don't matter. I don't make income, but I get food stamps. Can I get my stimulus check? Yes, as long as no one can claim you as a dependent. So use the non-filers tool. So where are you? So Maria, it's a non-filers tool. Okay, yeah. All right, so you use the non-filers tool, then yeah, you are eligible. You don't need to make income to get a stimulus payment. Albert Clark, I can't even get into the IRS website. It's been saying from the start, the information you enter does not match our records. Yeah, so that is such a tricky issue because, you know, at least other people on this, you know, have commented about issues to get my payment. It's like, oh, we don't, you know, we haven't determined your eligibility yet. And it's okay, we just got to give it time. But in this situation, they're saying, okay, you entered something wrong. Or not wrong, but just maybe you input it in a way we don't like. So you can check my video from, I made this one last week, I think, where I just kind of looked for various tricks that people have said to use to get my payment tool to work. You know, some people said don't use a period in your abbreviation on your address. Some people say do use a period. So obviously there's a lot of different let's see here. Yeah. Okay. So in this video, Albert, in this video, I mentioned some kind of tips and tricks for the Get My Payment tool. It's in the latter half of that video. Christy Gabriel, you two are the only ones I listen to. Thank you. I assume you're referring to me and Clear Value Tax. Yeah. When it comes to other stimulus YouTubers, I definitely think he is the best. Because there's some other ones who are just kind of milking it for the clicks, you know. Yeah, Clear Value Tax is legit. If you're more interested in some of the business stuff, right, PPP and EIDL, there's another one. His name's Hector Garcia, CPA. But he's focusing more so on the business side. So he does like PPP, EIDL stuff. Yeah. Anyway. Brian Buckley says, I make $750 a day. That's very nice. All right. So Sailor Stone, yeah, you and CVT are definitely kings. Team Logan, Brian 2020. I like that. Victor Trice, if a payee also gets SSI, will both of them receive it or only one? So if a payee also gets SSI, will both of them receive it or only one? So the individual who receives the benefits, right, their payee will likely get, their stimulus, right? That's what we're seeing. We don't know when yet. The IRS hasn't clarified. But then if the payee also gets, their own benefits and they're eligible for the stimulus, yeah, they're gonna get their own as well, right? So I think that's the nature of your question. In that case, both would get it if they're both eligible. Bobby Barfield, I received SSDI and have not received my stimulus check. I make $22,500 a year, and my CPA so they don't have to file a tax return because I'm disabled. What to do? Not received my stimulus check. Okay, yeah. Well, there's not much you can do. Okay, so if you make $22,500 a year, and I assume you're referring to actual wages there, then I assume you're married, unless you have a lot of itemized deductions. But in any case, yeah, if you're on SSDI, you should have gotten at the end of April. Many people haven't, so I'd be looking out hopefully this week. Danielle Grayson, will I ever get my $500 per child? I got my $1,200, but no letter yet saying why it's only $1,200. Well, it's only $1,200 because the IRS screwed up. Please watch my video from this morning. I talk about the issue with the $500. All right, I am all right. I'm going to do two more. And they're the ones I see from Shay and Sarah. So Shay says, Shay Hedge passed. My fiance gets SSDI and still hasn't received his check yet. He has direct deposit in a bank account. So yeah, I mean, this is common. We're seeing SSDI. Many people have not received it, despite the IRS saying they should have received it at the end of April, right? So my hope is when they do this big deposit for SSI, right, this Wednesday, maybe they'll throw in, some other people too who they missed, right, who also get benefits administered by the Social Security Administration, such as Social Security Retirement or SSDI. That's what I'm hoping. Is that going to happen? I don't know. But we know they're doing a big deposit on Wednesday. And then Sarah, I'm a stay-at-home mother with the earned income. I'm married, so can I not get I'm a stay-at-home mother with the earned income. I'm married, so can I not get the check? So nothing about what you said there, Sarah, would exclude you from receiving the check. You would not get the check if you do not have a Social Security number. If you're married to somebody who doesn't have a Social Security number and you file your taxes jointly with them, you would not get the check if you're eligible to be claimed as a dependent. You would not get the check if you make too much money over the income thresholds, right? I think what you're saying is, hey, you're a stay-at-home income, or you're a stay-at-home mom, and you're wondering maybe that counts as a dependent or something. No, that's not the case. Your spouse can't claim you as a dependent. Okay, so you would not be excluded on that basis. So it sounds like you're eligible. Being a stay-at-home mom does not exclude you from getting the stimulus check. Okay, I'm gonna call it there. It's been about an hour and a half. I'm supposed to go downstairs and eat dinner, but hey, thank you all for watching. I'm gonna do more of these. I'm gonna continue with the daily stimulus updates, doing additional lives for any breaking stuff, right? Like Trump talking about the stimulus, or at least answering the question about the stimulus today in the Rose Garden. I thought that was breaking enough to do a live right when that happened. And then, of course, more of these Q&As. So thank you for watching. Have a great evening, everybody.